To be able to build a championship contending team from the ground up, you need a little luck and a great front office with a great scouting department. Big market teams in the NBA have always had the upper hand in signing big time free agents. For a small market team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, there's a small margin of error to get it right in the NBA draft. And what they were able to build since coming to OKC is truly remarkable. It's rare to see a franchise have this much success in the draft for 3 straight years. This franchise literally made no mistakes in the draft from 2007 to 2009. In the short amount of time that this team has been in OKC, they have produced 3 league MVPs. 2 of those players won this award while playing with the Thunder, and the other won the award playing for another team. There hasn't been another team that has drafted 3 players to go on to win league MVP in a long time. But this magical ride didn't start in Oklahoma City. It actually started in Seattle, the Emerald City. The Seattle Supersonics have a very rich history in the NBA. There have been a lot of great players to come through and play for this organization. They have had players like Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, Jack Sigma, Ray Allen, Dennis Johnson, and Lenny Wilkins. The city of Seattle loved their Sonics. That was very evident. Like I said earlier, when building strictly through the draft, sometimes you need a little luck. When there's a generational talent available and you have the second pick, you just have to pray that the team with the number 1 pick does something foolish.
With the second pick in the 2007 NBA Draft, the Seattle Supersonics select Kevin Durant from the University of Texas.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Kevin Durant's favorite quote is, "Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard." What does that quote mean to you, Kevin?
It means no matter how good you are, if you don't work hard, nothing will happen for you. So I always use that quote. I instilled it in myself that no matter how good I am, I got to keep working.
This was an easy selection for the franchise. Greg Oden wasn't able to reach his potential because of injury. But even if he never had the injuries, Kevin Durant was clearly the best prospect in that draft, and it wasn't even close. Now, Sonics fans had a reason to be hopeful for the future. They finally got a young franchise player that could help lead them back to the NBA Finals. There was a reason why the Sonics had the number 2 pick that year. They were not very good. KD joined a team that only won 31 games the season before and had traded future Hall of Famer Ray Allen to the Celtics for the 5th pick. This team was made up of solid role players, but this team wasn't nearly good enough talent-wise to be competitive on a night-to-night basis. This team wasn't built to win just yet. Kevin Durant and fellow draft classmate Jeff Green, who was the 5th pick that year, were the only bright spots for the team that year.
Ridnour kicks out to Durant. Does it again! Kevin Durant with 5.1 remaining. KD at the end of regulation, KD at the end of the first overtime. Now Seattle needs that stop.
KD wasted no time showcasing his God-given ability. Physically, he wasn't ready to play the small forward position, so head coach PJ Carlesimo played KD at the shooting guard position 90% of the time in his rookie year. Just like with any other rookie, Durant had his ups and downs, but it was clear he was the next guy. The next guy who would eventually be in the conversation for the best player in the world. But despite his great talent and potential, the Sonics had the worst record in the league, and it was going to take some time for them to seriously contend for the playoffs in the Western Conference. They ended up with the 4th pick in the 2008 NBA Draft.
With the 4th pick in the 2008 NBA Draft, the Seattle Supersonics select Russell Westbrook from UCLA.
Well, this is nothing new. For the 12th straight year, a UCLA Bruin has been drafted. Kevin Durant there, he's like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And also in this same draft, the team selected big man Serge Ibaka with the 24th pick in the 1st round. But Ibaka stayed overseas for another year after he was drafted. This team looked so promising for the city of Seattle, but little did they know that this was going to be their last NBA draft with the Seattle Sonics name. 2008 is a year that will live in infamy for Sonics fans. Clay Bennett and his ownership group purchased the franchise in 2006 with the intention to carry out a good faith effort to secure a suitable arena in the Seattle area for the team. But emails were released publicly that some members of the ownership group really had no intention of staying in Seattle from the jump. Clay Bennett is from Oklahoma City, and it was clear all along that he wanted this franchise to be in his home state. The Seattle Sonics were no more, and it was now the Oklahoma City Thunder. Technically, the Sonics and the Thunder are the same franchise as of right now, but to the fans of Seattle and to the fans of Oklahoma City, nothing could be farther from the truth. As a matter of fact, the fans of Seattle heavily root against any success that the Thunder could have going forward. That's their mindset, and you really can't blame them. The 2008-09 NBA season was their first season in Oklahoma City. Despite great highlights and great optimism, their first season was rough, and that was to be expected. OKC began the season 3-25, and the team decided to fire PJ Carlesimo and went with Scott Brooks as the new head coach. Progress was made with Brooks as the leader, as they finished the season winning 20 of their last 34 games, which was much better than the start of the season. The one thing that the players could always count on was the fan support for the team. Oklahoma City has a college town atmosphere. There are no other professional sports team in the state besides the Thunder. OKC finished 23-59, and once again were picking in the lottery.
With the third pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select James Harden of Arizona State University.
But the Thunder, they liked James Harden all along. They considered him the most polished player in the draft. The sophomore guard from Arizona State.
The core was now complete. The beard was the last piece of this puzzle. The puzzle that GM Sam Presti was mostly responsible for. They had all the ingredients you needed to contend. Everything seemed to be rolling in the right direction from this point forward. In the 2009-10 season, this team won 50 games and made the playoffs for the first time since moving to OKC. Unfortunately, at that time, winning 50 games only got you the 8th seed in the Western Conference. OKC lost to the number 1 seeded Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. The next year they improved even more and won 55 games and ended up making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks were just too much of a complete team that year and beat OKC in 5 games. So in the last 2 playoff appearances, OKC ended up losing to 2 teams that will end up winning the championship in those 2 years. The Lakers in 2010 and the Mavericks in 2011. Also during the 2010-11 season, OKC decided to trade one of their former lottery picks, Jeff Green, for big man Kendrick Perkins. I know a lot of people think Perkins was a scrub and didn't put up a lot of numbers, but I believe he was a good addition to this team. This young team needed more veteran leadership. Perkins brought toughness and a more physical presence in the paint alongside Serge Ibaka. This was a different era than today's NBA. A big man like Perkins could survive in the league at the time because the league wasn't so three-point heavy and pace and space wasn't emphasized as much. Expectations for this team was at an all-time high. They had the playoff experience, they had the superstars, and they had a veteran presence. The 2011-12 OKC Thunder was definitely a team to remember. It was a season that many thought would be the start of a dynasty. Nobody of the young core was even 25 years old yet. KD and Russ were 23, and James Harden and Ibaka were 22. It was just truly remarkable how much success this team had, with their best players being so young. Westbrook and KD had already established themselves as stars in the league at such a young age. Westbrook was electric. He was damn near impossible to slow down once he got ahead of steam. Him and Derrick Rose are 2 of the most athletic point guards to ever play the position. Even though he didn't play the position like some wanted him to, he would always give 110% effort every night. Russ was energetic, passionate, and brought that competitive fire that could spark the entire team. KD was a generational talent, the type of player that only comes around once in a decade. It was truly unfair for opponents to try to guard this guy. Standing 7 feet tall with a crazy 7'4" wingspan, being able to handle the rock like a point guard, and had range on his jump shot to 30 feet. What do you do with that? He is regarded as one of the most skilled offensive players of all time. James Harden was the guy that wasn't recognized yet as a star player, but he had the skill set to affect the game in multiple areas. He actually was a good defender consistently at the time. He came off the bench for OKC, and he was able to feast on the second unit while KD and Russ were on the bench in the second quarters. He had the green light just as much as KD and Russ did. There were moments where he had the offense completely to himself. Harden had a 40-point game against the Phoenix Suns that year, and it was the game that really showcased his offensive talent. Serge Ibaka was the defensive anchor on the team. This athletic big man made it difficult for any opponent to score in the lane. He led the league in blocks that year with 251. He averaged almost 4 blocks a game. He made the all-defensive first team at just the tender age of 23. He didn't have a consistent jump shot just yet, as he mostly scored his buckets around the rim and in transition. OKC was the third highest scoring team in the league and posted the second best offensive rating. And in the first 2 rounds in the playoffs, they matched up with the 2 teams that knocked them out in the last 2 years. Revenge was going to be so sweet for OKC. It was the Mavericks in the first round and the Lakers in the second round. And OKC made easy work of both teams as they swept the Mavericks, and the Lakers only managed to get 1 game. And it was off to San Antonio for the Western Conference Finals. But the Spurs were a different beast. They were the #1 seed for a reason, and they were on a complete tear from the regular season to the playoffs. The Spurs swept through both of their first 2 matchups in the playoffs, and they looked damn near unbeatable. They carried that momentum in the first 2 games against OKC and went up 2-0. This young OKC team looked overmatched against a battle-tested Spurs team with veterans like Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker. But it just goes to show you that this OKC team wasn't like any other young team. They overcame all the odds and took the momentum back in Game 3 and Game 4, and Game 5 was the pivotal game in the series. The young guns for OKC made the important plays that were needed. Nobody froze. Nobody was afraid. Some would say they were too young to know any better. This team won 4 straight games against a great San Antonio Spurs team, and they advanced to the NBA Finals for the first time since coming to OKC. They had the home court advantage against LeBron James and the Miami Heat, and the first 4 games were competitive, but you can tell that the Miami Heat were just a little hungrier and more experienced. After losing and getting embarrassed against the Mavericks in the finals the year before, it was going to take an amazing effort to keep this Miami Heat team from winning that year. It was another successful year for this Thunder team, and losing to the Miami Heat was just extra motivation to come back stronger than ever. Everyone around the league knew that OKC was going to be the team to beat for years to come. Even the Miami Heat knew. Everything was fine for OKC going into the offseason. Kevin Durant had already signed his rookie extension in 2010. Westbrook signed his in early 2012, and Ibaka signed his extension in August before the next season started. The only player of the young core who wasn't locked up yet was James Harden. This was a no-brainer for a lot of people who follow basketball. Why would this even be up for a debate? James Harden was clearly a rising star, and he no doubt deserved a max extension. But Sam Presti in the front office thought otherwise. KD, Russ, and Harden deserved another year together. Another opportunity to run it back and capture that NBA championship. Now, I believe a talented player like Harden would eventually want to stop coming off the bench and get more opportunities. But that would be a problem they could solve later down the road. This was not a problem they had to worry about at the time. There are only so many stars in the league, and if you have a chance to have 3, you do whatever you can to keep them together. But unfortunately, this happened.
Mark, did this surprise you, or did the people in the inner circles of the NBA see this coming?
Not this soon, because the deadline for an extension for Harden is Wednesday night at midnight. All the first rounders from the class of 2009 have until midnight at Wednesday to try to get extensions done. The Thunder and Harden, they've been going at this all month. The Thunder were well aware that teams like the Houston Rockets, the Dallas Mavericks, the Phoenix Suns, and others were all prepared to offer Harden the max if he made it all the way to being a restricted free agent on July 1st. So the Thunder basically knew they were going to try to get a deal done this month. but they didn't want to give Harden the max. Their position was everyone who's re-signed here has sacrificed a little something, even Durant, even Russell Westbrook, so they were looking for Harden to be willing to take a little less than the max to stay when the sides couldn't come to terms. We know Sam Presti, the Thunder GM, is pretty decisive, so he turned around quickly and today started working on trades. And the Rockets, their interest in James Harden has been known for quite a long time, so they were able to consummate a deal with Houston pretty quickly. But I think around the league, the expectation would have been that the Thunder would have at least tried to take this all the way to Wednesday and see if they could get a deal done. But Sam Presti decided not to.
Sam Presti and OKC wanted to be cheap, and it cost them a future MVP. But even without James Harden, OKC had enough talent to get back to the NBA Finals. But injuries to key players and the rise of Steph Curry and the Warriors ultimately kept the Thunder from winning a championship. It's almost like the franchise was cursed when Clay Bennett decided to move the franchise and gave no legit effort to keep the team in Seattle. There has been so much heartbreak for OKC over the years. From former draft picks winning league MVP on another team, to injuries to key players during a playoff run, to seeing certain players win a championship with another team, to losing playoff series in the first round. After 10 years, there are no current members of the 2011 team still with the franchise, and it's a shame that this team never made it back to the NBA Finals with all the talent they have had since the 2012 Finals. I'm sure the Seattle Sonics fans can find some peace knowing that they failed to deliver a championship to Oklahoma City.